3, we are learning that children begin the journey towards literacy at birth. What you have learned about child development has provided a basic understanding of how children grow and develop. Chapters 1, 2, and 3 have addressed in more depth basic language development. The authors of your textbook pointed out that oral language development, both listening and speaking, laid the foundations needed to become literate. We shall explore this idea in more depth. Chapter 4 stressed the role that reading aloud to young children plays in their becoming literate. You learned many strategies for increasing the effectiveness of reading aloud with children in various stages of development. At the beginning of this class, you received this chart or a version of. We are now ready to investigate the numerous understandings that children must have to become literate. The large chart you received with your textbook will be helpful as you strive to understand the very complex task of learning to read and write. You will want to consult that chart as you read Chapter 5 and as you listen to these presentations in Module 3. The chart shows the developmental continuum that leads to literacy. Amazingly, the most critical understandings are developed by the age of 8 for most children. In fact, we're going to talk about the first 5 years. 60% of everything a child will know during his or her lifetime is learned by the age of 5. This sounds unbelievable until you understand that by age 5, children have vocabularies of 10,000 or more words. Some children have vocabularies of more than 20,000 words, and sadly, others have 5,000 words or less by age 5. In this presentation, we will explore further the vocabulary gap as just identified. The gap is rarely ever narrowed through the years after age 5. Children who have learned how to learn language continue learning language at a phenomenal rate, and those that are lagging only tend to lag farther behind. By age 5, most children without serious disabilities have learned to use all of the grammatical structures of their native language. They can make statements and ask questions. They can use the present, past, and future tense. They can create plurals, even those formed irregularly, and both nominative and objective nouns and verbs. They use adjectives, adverbs, comparatives, and what is even more amazing is that children learn to use language without ever having been taught language directly. They have listened, tried to communicate, and self-corrected when they were not communicating effectively. Children are hardwired to learn language from birth. Unless a disability such as a hearing loss or being isolated from human contact interferes, kids learn their native language. They even frequently become more fluent in more than one language and figure out when each is most appropriately used. There are 3 videos that we would like you to take time to watch on your own. One is this, regarding the brain architecture. This one focuses on a concept called serve and return, and it involves a full explanation of what happens when we respond to children, to infants and toddlers. Going back to the vocabulary word gap, it is important here that we look at and consider the difference between the words heard per hour, per 100-hour week, and how that comes to a year. And so here are those numbers that we've seen. Now earlier we quoted numbers of vocabularies that children use. Here we are looking at the number of words a child has heard. And you will see there is a direct correlation in this. Why the difference? As you can see here and as identified on this infographic from the First 5 Years Fund, disadvantaged children can start kindergarten as much as 18 months behind their peers. Consider what a 3.5-year-old knows and has been exposed to versus a 5-year-old, or what a 4.5-year-old knows and is exposed to as compared to a 6-year-old. That is the kind of difference we are talking about here. Most children who enter kindergarten behind never catch up. And children who do not read by 3rd grade or read well by 3rd grade are 4 times more likely to drop out. Additionally, this infographic shows us how a mother's education is highly predictive of a young child's educational experiences, showing that children of high school dropouts have the lowest preschool participation rates. This infographic is often shared with children in kindergarten, 1st, 2nd grade, and their families of what it means when a child misses the time that they are read to in a day. A direct correlation to the number of words a child hears is how often the child is read to, and the quality of those books, which we will explore in depth this semester. There is also this idea of second language learning and this window of opportunity. Notice that the highest window of opportunity to acquire a language, whether your first or second language, is in the first 6 years of life. And then at that point, it drops considerably. Consider when we start teaching second languages in our public schools. We are missing a huge opportunity when we do not introduce second languages to children in the preschool and kindergarten years. And lastly, one more video that we would like you to watch, again from the same website, regarding the developing child's mind and language development. These links to the videos are in class within Blackboard.